Let us get started for our next panel session called Evolving Consumer Trends in Micromobility. And within the next roughly 30 minutes, we will discuss about consumer sentiments when it comes to ownership types within micromobility, how people are moving from A to B in cities today and what they prefer within that, whether they rather prefer private versus shared options, and also the different form factors that we are seeing in the market today, whether these are actually the right ones. And to go into all these topics, we have a great panel with us this afternoon, and I will let them introduce now by themselves. I would say ladies first. Tuli, please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Tuli Evstigneyev. I'm a CMO of Ampla Bikes. We make light urban e-bikes for urban commuters, and we are from Estonia. But we have offices and showrooms in Amsterdam, Berlin, Cologne, and Zurich. And we sell direct-to-consumer Europe-wise. And one of our USPs is that our bikes look pretty much like regular bicycles, and that also means that they can service in regular bike shops. And that's kind of the whole philosophy of the bikes. And they are hand-built, hand-assembled in Estonia in our own factory. So.
Thank you very much. Great to have you here today. Daniela.
Hello, my name is Daniela. I am a mobility behavior and trend researcher for the ADAC. I focus on micromobility and also on shared mobility. The ADAC is a mobility club traditionally. We focus on cars, but we're also broadening our services. So we service right now 21.5 million members, and we're the second biggest club in the world. And like I said, we're transforming right now, so we don't just do road assistance for cars, but also for bikes, or for e-scooter users, or for motorcyclists. And we do a lot of road safety education, because this is one of our main focuses as well, to increase road safety.
Many thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
Augustin.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Some of you might know me from LinkedIn, where I share a lot of content about micromobility and other mobility services. The good thing is I have also a proper job. I work for MHP, which is a Porsche company focusing on consulting in the mobility space. If it comes to micromobility, I work a lot with cities on how to define next level shared mobility services that are subsidized by cities. I also work with manufacturers of micromobility devices to support them on the go-to-market strategies. Very happy to be part of this panel here today. I'm looking forward to our discussion, and over to you.
Thank you very much. And Bob.
Hi all, I'm Bob Vroeg. I run the design agency Vroeg Design, and we do all R&D activities for mobility brands. And I'm looking forward to this panel because we are very close to the consumer, and we try to make solutions that really have product market fit.
Thank you very much for being with us here today.
Of course.
And finally, I'm Benedict. I'm an associate partner with McKinsey, where I'm co-leading our efforts around shared mobility and micromobility, and I'm very happy to guide us through this session today. So let me kick us off with the following question. So from a consumer point of view, consumers move around differently in our cities today. How do you think will this look like in the city of the future? What will be the role of micromobility? What will be the role of other modes of transport, like the car, shared mobility, public transit, and so on? Tuli, what is your opinion on that?
I think firstly, it differs from country to country and city to city. I think depends on the infrastructure, it depends on politicians, what they allow and what they don't allow, because once you build the infra, then you will also have either cyclists or other micromobility moves kind of following. I feel like public transport, the same. I really admire how Amsterdam has done it. So you have exceptional infrastructure in the city, but then you can also take a train, and then you can take a public transport bike to go to point A to point B. So I feel like it's about linking different ways of commuting. And in the end of the day, I feel like the more people we get out of cars and give them alternatives, then everyone wins.
Daniela, what is your opinion?
I think it depends on the consumers, on the consumer types. We don't just have one type of consumer that is mobile, and we have different type of needs and that people need to fulfill. So if we look, for instance, at micromobility, we've seen that there's been a huge increase, and we now have our latest consumer survey showed that we have about 15% of people using micromobility, especially e-scooters. So that's huge within such a short time. And we also seen that 75% haven't used e-scooters yet, for instance, but there's still about 1 out of 5 that would like to try it. So I think there's even more potential for the future. And what's very interesting about this crowd that is using e-scooters is that they're even more multimodal than other population groups. That means they enjoy various types of transportation. They not just only use e-scooters, but they use a car more often, public transportation more often, bicycles more often, and they walk. So that means they select according to what they want to do and where they want to go, which form of transportation they're using. And that's great. So I can relate to what Tuli says, just to be open and pick and choose the modes of transportation and not just be stuck to one form of getting ahead.
Thank you. Augustin, what is your opinion?
First of all, I can only agree with like Tuli that it's hyper local, so there's no blueprint that we can roll out everywhere. It will be very customized city by city. And what I find very promising is that we have like super good positive examples that can play like a role model. I think Hamburg shared some data about like the modal shift, what they reached in a couple of years already. So bike is picking up there as well, or like micromobility, that's the right direction, I would say. Then there are some others that do a good job on infrastructure, like Göteborg. I visited the city a couple of weeks ago. Amazing to see them there, like the bike lanes as part of the city infrastructure, something we could dream of in Berlin. So I think there are a lot of signals going in the right direction to improve or increase the modal split, modal share of micromobility, like in our urban landscapes. Of course, cars, public transport, they will also play a major role, but definitely we have the right trends. And some idea or some area I think where we need to focus more on is like kind of like groups that have like special needs, families, for example, maybe then also suburbs, maybe then also people with handicaps, to also enable them the access to micromobility with, let's say, cargo bikes, special services, special prices, etc. So I think this is an area where I'm interested in to do more.
Thank you for that opinion. And finally, Bob, what is your opinion? What will be the role of micromobility in the city of the future?
Of course, I think micromobility has a very important role to fill in. I think at the moment the development is pushed by the consumers and held back by the legislation and the government. Where, especially in Amsterdam, we see so many different types of vehicles on the road already, even when they are not legal, like the kick scooters are not legal here. But consumers are still using them because it's a beautiful and perfect solution for their needs. And I think we should allow more and more vehicles on the like more innovation on the road to improve the product market fit compared with what we have now.
Thank you very much. Within these discussions, people always or very often then think about the city of the future and what will be the role of micromobility there. I personally live in a small rural area in a town with only 5,000 inhabitants. So what will be the role of micromobility in rural areas in the future? Tuli, what is your opinion on that?
I feel like the same example I brought about Amsterdam before could be a solution that, you can cycle with your own bike to a train station, for example, take a train to the city, and from the city you can get the city rental bike, which is priced accordingly that you can actually afford it, and it's like a nice convenient way. So linking those different ways of moving, because I generally still believe that people should start looking into alternatives to cars. It's not like you just have to live in a car when you live outside of the city in order to be able to move. There are so many different ways, but again, it just depends on the city what do they provide you with and how they help you on it. Because if you're kind of tend to your own means and you want to cycle to the city, but you're not allowed to take a bike to the train, there's like 2 slots per train, then you're kind of stuck there, and then you will choose a car.
Bob, what is your opinion?
I think that the use case really defines the type of product. And the use cases in the rural areas are completely different than here in the urban areas. What we see now in the micromobility, especially in the development part of it, so the innovation part, is that there's no dominant design for most of these use cases. There's a lot of experimental design. So for example, a cargo bike, you have a two-wheel cargo bike, a tricycle, you have the box in the front, you have the box in the back. There's no dominant solution for the use cases. And I think for all use cases like urban, family purpose, rural area, commuting, there will be an ideal product, but we are not there yet.
Maybe to add a different perspective there as well. So we are talking about commuting and doing like day-to-day jobs. I think an area where electric micromobility has also a huge impact is on like fun rides and leisure rides, especially in the urban area and the rural areas. So I grew up in the Alps, in the mountains, and there like the e-bike was a game changer. Yeah, also like creating new businesses, then for like the tour guides, for cities, for hotels to offer them like other stuff as well. For like people also that live in this area to use then an e-mountain bike to go like into the mountains, something they've never done before. So I think this is then like this kind of like electrification of micromobility is then also opening up a lot of opportunities beyond like the urban and commute mobility use cases we talk here a lot. Yeah.
Thank you. This brings me to another topic. I mean, you mentioned that people then will use their car. Daniela, you are working for the largest automotive club in Germany. Augustin, you are working for MHP, which belongs to Porsche. And if I quote now Horace Detio from this morning, micromobility hopefully will have an impact on car miles traveled and the number of cars on the roads. What will be the role of the automotive players in micromobility in the future? Daniela, what is your opinion on that?
So we would not like to see ourselves as just an automotive player, but more like a consumer advocate. So our history is cars. Many people come for us for our road assistance that we offer, but we also offer that same road assistance for bicycles or other forms of transportation. So I think just like society in general, we are also in the middle of our transformation to broaden our services. We do a lot of educational programs for road safety, for instance. So we go into schools and we do, it's called Kick Scooter Fit, to teach the kids to be more fit and safe when they're riding with their kick scooters. And the same we also do for electric kick scooters. We don't offer yet training programs, but we show what is a safe position when you're braking or how to start up when you're driving a kick scooter. So we'd like to do a lot of educational and informational services to just enhance road safety in general, but also to embrace and promote individual mobility and independent of what form, if they're on a bicycle or on an electric kick scooter.
Thank you. Augustin, what is your opinion? What will be the role of automotive players in micromobility?
I would like to look on this question from a different perspective. I would say, so the role of automotives, I don't see them in the micromobility space as of today. There have been some trials, but most of them, or like nearly all of them, failed. I think that what needs to change is the mindset. Yeah, so in the past, so that's my personal opinion, maybe they've seen it more as kind of an hobby. So, okay, we do bikes. I mean, we put it in the showrooms and then we have like a growing business, but we all know that's not working out. So if they want to play a role in the evolving micromobility space, they really need to take it serious. They need to take their mind or like change their mind to building then like the organization behind that could develop, produce, and then also sell those devices. And that's completely different from like selling cars or being active in the automotive space. I think that's the trigger we need. If they want to be part of the revolution, they need to change like their setup and their mindset. And then this could work out. Some good examples are maybe what Porsche is doing now in the more premium and luxury space. It's like getting involved and then designing, producing like the bikes and the systems around that, targeting a very niche group. I think this could be a good starting point. But if we talk then about mass adoption and volume market, we need then also like other players in the automotive space that have like the more volume brand and like access to a lot of people going in this direction as well, like with like kind of a serious approach and mind shift in what we see then today.
Thank you. Tuli, you are working for Empla Bikes. Bob, you are working for a design company. Let's talk about the form factor a bit and what consumers are actually demanding there. So, referring to the McKinsey presentation that we have seen this morning, more than 50% of the consumers globally would prefer a bike as a main micromobility mode, and only 13% an e-kick scooter today. So what is your take on this? What do you believe will be the winning form factor in the future? And does it already exist today? What is your opinion, Tuli?
Again, I feel like it depends on, bikes have been around for much longer, right? People are more used to them, but I also feel like kick scooters have a lot of potential to get people moving who maybe don't want to ride a bike, or they don't have anywhere to store a bike because bike takes room. With a kick scooter, you can just fold it together normally, and you can just bring it upstairs and so on. It's just easier and simpler. I feel like something that's really currently lacking is education around kick scooters. So people have been riding them around like maniacs in bigger cities, and that's why cities are banning them and not allowing them. And I think that's kind of like also a job that the city needs to do. They need to meet the kick scooter producers halfway, maybe even taking a line away from cars and giving it separately to kick scooters. I'm not saying that kick scooters and bikes, if there's no education, can like roam around together, because it will get quite chaotic if people just don't look where they're going and what they're doing. But also separating a space for them, because I think there should be a space for them. And I think it also enables a lot of people who maybe can't cycle to move around and choose another means of mobility than a car. Again, I'm not saying cars are bad. Cars always will have a place also. So it's not like us against them or anything, but I'm saying that there should be alternatives and people should have choices, and they should be able to have those choices.
And Bob, what do you think? What will be the winning form factor? Is it already designed, or do you have to design it?
I'm a little bit biased in my answer here because I'm a designer, of course. So I think for the typical, going back to the use cases, for the typical use cases, the bike is known, as you say. The use of the bike is known. How it fits in our life, how it fits in our infrastructure, that's all known. But it does not fit all the purposes that we want to cover in the micromobility scene. So there are purposes where now the bike is used as the ideal product, but it's a concession. So for example, all these delivery guys, delivering your pizza and your patat and all kind of food, in my opinion, they don't really need the bike. The bike is not the ideal solution. Now they have the bike because it's cheap, they don't need the insurance, they don't need a driver license to drive it. But they would be better off with a high quality product without a manual drivetrain, so without a second drivetrain, only with the motor. But that's not there. There's no space in the current legislation for such a product. But these scooter guys, now if you see them cycling around, they're only activating the sensor because they're maybe a little bit lazy. Point I want to make is that now the bike has filled in a gap for a lot of micromobility purposes, but I'm sure that there will be other types of vehicles that are based on the bike, but that are further evolved for specific use cases, like this pizza guy.
Thank you.
Maybe to add there, so you mentioned like an interesting point that, okay, it's maybe high quality bike should be the device that has like a purpose for delivery drivers, but also for maybe private use case. Yeah. So personal experience, we got an e-bike, 1,500 euros. It was not usable after 1 year, yeah, because it was broken. There was no supply chain, etc. How to get it fixed and so on. It was also not that easy to buy this bike. It was a one-time payment, etc. So I think also what's important to like drive this development is how can we like ease up the access to the like high quality devices, and then also maybe to like the supply chain maintenance stuff behind that. And that's for me like quite promising to see a lot of activities in terms of like sharing, but also subscriptions for private users, but also for B2B users with like Sumo, for example, and others. So I think this is then also like an area where we see a lot of like dynamics in the moment going in the right direction to then like allow people access to then high quality micromobility.
And I would like to add to that, in my opinion, that is something that the automotive can bring to the industry. So I'm very happy that we don't have all the legislation as in automotive and all the certifications and all the processes, but we can cherry pick them who add value to our industry. And there's a lot to learn from the automotive.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Let us talk a bit now about ownership types. So owning versus sharing the vehicles. Latest consumer surveys have shown that more than 75% of consumers state to prefer a kind of private ownership when it comes to micromobility vehicles, be it buying the vehicles or leasing, financing, or subscribing to the vehicles. And only a minority share really preferring a shared mobility solution. What is your take on this? What will be the role of shared micromobility providers in the future? And what are we going to see there? Maybe Augustin, do you want to share your opinions?
So I think like I asked or like thought about this question, and I think as a human being, we prefer owning instead of sharing. So I mean, also if you look at the other shared industry like car sharing, etc. I mean, it's maybe like a buzzword, it's a hype topic, but the usage is very small. So also with like very expensive devices, we prefer ownership, leasing, subscription more than like sharing. And I think this is then also what we see now after the hype in the shared micromobility space then. And what does it mean then for the players that are active? I mean, they need to adopt like their business models, or maybe we see then also like kind of consolidation. Yeah, so there's room for sharing, no question, but maybe not as at the extent that we have seen in the last couple of years with multiple players, several thousand like vehicles per operator in the fleet, tons of millions of funding. You all know the story. So maybe there's room, but maybe not as like large as it was like told us in the last couple of years. But also in addition to that, there's then also room for those like micromobility operators to grow in other like verticals, offer subscription services, maybe then offer then also different types of vehicles also in subscription. So I think there's like this dynamic is there, and if you want to succeed, you need to master the dynamic and find then your plan there.
Thank you. Daniela, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. If we look at the sharing and owning rates right now, our latest survey about usage has shown, so we asked 6,800 people, do they own or do they share an e-scooter? Do they use one? And of those that do use e-scooters, there was almost a 50-50 divide between sharing and using. So 45% of those people that use regular e-scooters, they own one. And that rate is much higher compared to any other forms. Like car sharing is, I think we're about 5%, 4% right now. So that's a huge difference. And I think micromobility offers more space for sharing as well, because people who share an e-scooter do this for different purposes than people who buy an e-scooter. They're typically ones that are heavy users. That means they use it way more often. They use it for longer distances. They use it also for commuting to work or to school. They use it for regular ways. Whereas those that like to share an e-scooter, they like the flexibility. They like the interface with their smartphone. They're very tech savvy, and most of all, they like to do it spontaneously. And so I think we have here very different user groups. And maybe in the beginning they will just share one and then get so hooked and enjoy it so much that then they'll later on continue to buy one.
Thank you. One follow-up question on this. When thinking about the provider of these shared e-kick scooter services, who should it actually be to attract most of the consumers and to move them to a shared economy and shared service model? Are these the private companies we are seeing today, so the startups? Should this be integrated into public transport? Maybe the cities by themselves? Any opinion on that, on the future provider?
I think as Tuli mentioned earlier, it depends city by city. So, I mean, if you want to operate a micromobility service, you also need to have like the competencies doing that. And I would say most importantly, have like really nerds who are running the service, that know the city, that know how to design then the service, how many bikes or scooters, should it be electric, non-electric, how many stations there should be the stations. So you really need some in the city who is driving that. And then it could be successful from city level to run that also. If a city says, okay, we would like to have that, maybe a micromobility service, but we don't have the competencies, we don't have like the micromobility enthusiasts who can run it, maybe then they are better off either to partner with one who's like providing the full stack, like bikes, software, operations, or maybe just part of that. So I think that's like picking up there where it really started. It's really like depends on the local setup, the local circumstances, and then, okay, we need to find there the best solution.
I would like to add on that I also feel like people are not like so like boxed up that I am a bike owner, or I am an e-scooter, kick-scooter owner. For example, I own an e-bike, but I sometimes rent a cargo bike if I need to do journeys. If I travel, I sometimes rent the kick-scooter, sometimes I rent a bike. So I feel like having like there's multiple alleyways for yourself as well, like multiple user cases, I think that's also spreading, and you know that you have those options. And then whenever I travel, for example, I always check out what providers are in the city, what are the rules, what are the regulations. And it was quite surprising to me, for example, in Paris, where I was a couple of weeks ago, that renting an e-bike there cost me the same amount of money as taking a cab, or taking like a Bolt taxi, for example. So that doesn't really make sense, because it should be like a preferable means of transport, should be cheaper, right? But it was exactly the same price. And I mean, obviously I was outside, I like cycling, but it would have taken me 10 minutes to go there in a Bolt car, and it took me 25 on a bike, and the pricing is the same. So I feel like these are also kind of the details that cities or providers need to look into and make them user-friendly.
I mean, very interesting that you are mentioning Paris. I think we all know what happened in Paris, and that actually the consumers voted to ban the shared e-kick scooters. What does this mean for the shared e-kick scooter industry? Any opinions on that?
I can elaborate on that, because I'm also kind of like dipping into the scooter world, and I'm from Estonia. Bolt is from Estonia, so I have a lot of insights. I feel like even if the shared scooters will be banned for now, I don't think it has like a massive impact, because firstly, private scooters, it will still have a place, and maybe it's just for like temporarily makes it safer. I feel like maybe people become more conscious, and maybe that's a start that the whole e-scooter sharing scene kind of had like a massive leap forward before all the basics were done. So there's a good saying that they nailed they didn't nail the advanced before they were actually like fit with the basics. And maybe now this kind of opens that door that people actually will learn how to use these vehicles, how to behave in traffic, and then the shared scene will also follow in the future. So I feel maybe that's how it's going to evolve. At least I hope so.
I think also with, sorry, go ahead.
Just to add on that, I think it's not an automatic evolvement what you're describing, that people becoming more aware. I think what it did is initiate a discussion and also dialogue between many communities and sharing providers, because many problems come also with the sharing industry, or I don't want to say problems, it's challenges, because the infrastructure is not there yet. So there's a lot of challenges when it comes to parking them. They're on the sidewalk, people trip over them. We have bike accidents because, at night they're parked on a bike lane and a bicycle rider cannot see them, for instance. So I think these are very important discussions to initiate and discuss solutions.
Education, right?
Yeah, not just, and infrastructure improvement as well. And this will also help private owners if rules are being more laid out, more explained. Also, the reasoning, why are these rules there? Why shouldn't you use an e-scooter with two people, but one? So it's not just a lot of education, but also infrastructure improvement. And that needs to happen in dialogue so that all participants, road participants, feel comfortable when using it.
Yeah, I agree.
I just wanted to add there, if you look at that, like the Paris case from a user perspective, I mean, the good thing is they have still like multiple choices on micromobility. So if they have like a really good public bike sharing system that could be used, maybe that's then also cheaper than like a Bolt ride. Plus we have then like also like the private ones that have like operated now scooters going then also into bikes. So I think from a user perspective, okay, you have then the choice to go like with a different mode that's not a car. You have, like, as you mentioned, a great infrastructure there also in Paris. So I would say from user perspective, it doesn't really change. I mean, there's still a lot of options there to go around without using a car.
Thank you. So we are already coming to the end. If I look on the time, this brings me to my closing question. What is your future vision for micromobility for the consumer? In one sentence, Julie.
Oh, one sentence.
Yeah.
Earth friendly. I wish that transportation means will be earth friendly, people and earth friendly.
Thank you. Daniela, what is your vision?
I'd like to add to sustainability, it will be more digital and also more with more variety. So we have a lot of innovations going on right now, different forms, different types of micromobility vehicles.
Augustine.
We need more safe infrastructure for like riding bikes and micromobility devices. I think that would be my vision. Yeah.
Again, the use cases. I think it will be more aligned with the use cases, more efficient and more fun.
Thank you very much. So we are already out of time, and at the end, thank you very much for joining us. I hope there's something to take away for you from the session. Let's give a big hand to our panel today. Thank you for joining us. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
All right. Super.